We're looking next at Montreal, and this is the scene of protest on the campus of McGill University. Pro-Palestinian students have set up an encampment on school grounds. This is now into its third day, so 2 nights as the encampment has grown. This is the third day. Protesters say they want divestment. Well, we've heard from university officials earlier this morning, and we just got a response through our colleague at CBC Montreal from protesters who are there on the ground in that encampment. And Marianne is here with the word from both.
Yes, that's right, Heather. I'll get into what McGill said this morning in its statement, but we do have that response from those who are part of the camp on their Telegram channel, and I'm going to read it now. It says, after a calm and peaceful second night at the encampment, McGill has sent an email manufacturing consent for a repressive response. There have been no reports of problems during the night. Please be prepared to support any potential police presence. We have strength and safety in numbers. That, again, posted by the camp on its Telegram channel. But looking at the images here, you can see how much things have changed since this encampment began on campus at McGill on Saturday. That's when about 20 tents went up. But according to a statement from McGill officials this morning, they believe that that encampment has now tripled in number. And they also believe that majority of the people in that encampment are not members of the McGill school community. We are awaiting a response again today from McGill. They are meeting senior officials at the university today to discuss the next steps in dealing with this encampment and those pro-Palestinian protesters calling for divestment from Israel. And we are waiting to hear what they have to say. But back to that statement, this is part of what McGill said this morning. It says, in part, last night we viewed video evidence of individuals engaging in intimidating behavior and making blatantly anti-Semitic comments, which is completely unacceptable on our campuses. We strongly and unreservedly condemn these actions and comments and will immediately carry out an investigation. McGill University has consistently supported the right of its university community to exercise its freedom of expression and peaceful assembly within the limits provided by its policies and law. But I should mention, Heather, that the university, says that this camp contravenes the freedom to make one's voice heard and the freedom to assemble peacefully.
So, as you mentioned, meeting as we are speaking this morning to look at next steps, and we'll announce what that action is. What is the school considering?
Well, the big question is, how long will this encampment stay there? If you ask students, they say they plan to stay there indefinitely. If you ask other officials, the plan is to create a timeline to potentially dismantle this encampment. We know that the university has said in the statement released this morning from McGill that they have been in talks with the lawyers retained by the students of McGill who are in this encampment to discuss a timeline and also security. But take a look. This was also said in this statement. Yesterday, at the end of the day, the lawyers representing the students informed us that the latter refused to continue the discussions and that they have not made any proposals or suggestions aimed at moving the dialogue forward. Instead, protesters indicated that they plan to remain on campus indefinitely. And again, university officials saying today that the number of tents there has tripled. We also know that MP Anthony Housefather took to X over the weekend, saying that university officials, even police, need to step in to do something about this encampment. But of course, we are awaiting more from university officials at McGill on their next steps. Again, senior officials, Heather, are discussing that today.
Okay, we'll be in touch with you, Marianne, also with our colleagues at CBC Montreal, and keep you right up to date on what is happening on McGill campus today. The United States, of course, remains the flashpoint for pro-Palestinian protests on university campuses. Those encampments continue to mushroom, but more universities are taking action to uproot them. Virginia Tech, the latest campus to see police action. This is video showing arrests overnight. A spokesperson confirms there are arrests after student protesters were given an ultimatum to pack up their encampment late last night. Some universities are moving aggressively to end the protests, with hundreds arrested over the weekend. But other schools are holding off and relying on negotiations to defuse the standoffs. Steve Futterman was with us earlier this morning from on campus at UCLA.
It's the middle of the night here. You hear music in the background. There are 3 pro-Israeli protesters here who are trying to keep the encampment behind me full of the pro-Palestinian protesters awake. There's one gentleman with a megaphone telling them, wakey, wakey. So there's some back and forth going on almost 24 hours a day. But yesterday there was a major dual rallies taking place here. Pro-Israelis coming here in the hundreds and making their points known. They were infiltrated. Their rally was infiltrated by maybe 3-4 dozen pro-Palestinian protesters. There was what you might expect, the pushing and the shoving. There were no arrests, but there were security people there making sure that things didn't get completely out of hand. But there was some tense moments at UCLA yesterday. Now, this is taking place, obviously, throughout the country right now, as you mentioned. Last night, Virginia Tech, Arizona State on Friday night, University in St. Louis, Washington University, there were a number of arrests. And over the weekend, I think this is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the estimate is around 300 people arrested throughout the U.S. So this is growing. It's not lessening. It's growing both in size and intensity. And it's a very interesting situation that these campuses find themselves in right now.
And these protests, Steve, are springing up as the school year winds down. So
yes,
for big universities, and you're on one campus, grad ceremonies can mean tens of thousands of people on campus. We were talking about one last week, 65,000, I think you told us, at USC.
Right.
So what kind of pressure does that mean for administrators at places like UCLA?
Well, I don't think they're worried about security for the people who will come to the graduation. What they are concerned about is disruption of the graduation ceremonies. I mean, right now, there are 3 young men here who are making a bit of a chaotic scene for the encampment here. So you don't need that many people to disrupt a graduation. And I think that's what the big concern is from authorities. They expect there's going to be disruptions. And again, once the school year ends, do you allow these encampments to stay here, or do you really force them out? So it's a very, very difficult situation. As I think I said last week, the biggest question is, how will these protests come to an end, and when will they come to an end? We don't have any answers for that right now.
Steve, thank you very much.